these activists aren't speaking for the people they say they're speaking for. They're speaking for themselves. They're not speaking for the groups they supposedly are speaking for.
And in this day and age, when it's attached to something like the idea of being a progressive or being a good person, being on the left, being a kind person, you go along with these things, and the next thing you know, you're supporting the wildest of the leftists. And this is how screwed up everything's gotten just over the last few years.
I'm beginning to sense that there's a pushback. I think they've made a serious miscalculation. They pushed so hard and so long that they've started to wake up middle America to the point that they're saying, wait a minute, what?
I mean, Canada has some pretty insane cases that are going on right now about gender transition from really young kids.
America's not far behind that because I've talked to a lot of teachers, and they're telling me that if the child is not ready to talk to their parents about this, that it's okay for them to keep a secret from the child. Now, let me tell you what my problems with this are and see what you think. First off, if this is either a psychological phenomenon or a medical phenomenon, and the teachers are not trained in either psychology or medicine. If it's a psychological thing, if it's gender dysphoria, it's a medical issue, then you need someone trained in child psychology, psychiatry, or medicine. And the teacher's not trained in any of those three things. How are they qualified to deal with that? Secondly, it's teaching the child to keep a secret from their parents. Their justification for that is, well, if the child goes home and announces this, then the child could get abused, the child could get kicked to the curb. But they have to admit statistically that is very rare. And if that's the case, that's what we have the Department of Child and Family Services for. That's what we have Child Protective Services for. And if the child is being abused at home, for whatever reason, you get intervention in that way. But you don't come between the child and their parent. The parent has the right to know what's going on.
They're supposed to be teachers. They're not supposed to be parents.
But it's all about, let's be commonsensical. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at science. Let's not look at what you want to be the truth. Let's look at what is the facts. Let's look at what is science. It's interesting they choose words like gender-affirming care. That's interesting that they call it that, but really what they're talking about is hormonal therapy or sex reassignment surgery on children. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Endocrine Society, or whatever the exact name of that is, all of the major medical associations have signed off on this, Joe. They've signed off on it. And I have never seen those organizations sign off on anything with less information as to whether or not it does long-term harm of anything in my life. And when I ask about that, when I bring that up, then they immediately label you as transphobic. I thought that the deal was first do no harm. And all of the European countries, Sweden, Norway, they've all stopped doing it because they say, we cannot say in good conscience that this does no harm, because it does harm. And their reason for doing it is it stops this drive for suicide. It doesn't fix that. It doesn't fix all the comorbid issues that come along with feeling like they're in the wrong body. But yet they're pushing this, and I think people are going to be shocked that these medical organizations have signed off on this. I think they've just given in to the pressure.
You talk kids into believing in all kinds of ridiculous shit because they're really young, especially by reinforcing it with love and support and happiness. You can convince people of a lot of things. That's what's uncomfortable for a lot of people. For a lot of gay people, they're uncomfortable with the idea that a lot of these kids are just going to grow up to become gay. It's homophobic. It's like they're trying to say, no, you're a girl, when really maybe you're just gay. Like, that's okay. Looking at little kids, it might just be gay kids. You're saying maybe you're a girl. Maybe you need to go to a gender reassigning surgery center and never have an erection or an orgasm for the rest of your life. Like, what the f*** are we doing? They're so young.
I don't think it's appropriate or safe for children. There's not a huge body of literature about the transgender population, and that's the problem. And what literature is out there suggests that you get, and this is what you see from the European countries. They've done study after study from these suppressive hormones compared to doing psychotherapy, and there's not much difference. If you do psychotherapy, you can ease the depression, you can ease the suicidal tendencies with psychotherapy without doing the irreversible things. They say, well, you can reverse those things. No, that's not true. If you arrest the development, that can have ramifications long term, or at least they can't say it doesn't have ramifications long term.
There's also serious side effects from the hormone blockers.
Well, of course, if you're doing testosterone blockers, for example, that does have long-term consequences. My point is they can't say it doesn't. They don't have a body of literature that says it doesn't. And
what do you
I'm
think
not
is
a physician.
Behind it, though? Like, how did this, this is so contrary to the way most people feel, what do you think is behind it, especially the push towards children, affirming children? How is this trans thing becoming a major point of debate with children where it never has in history? And it seems insane that we've forgotten that kids don't know what the is going on yet.
I think a lot of it is owing to social media platforms and the internet. I think this is what I'm talking about when I say the activists, I don't think speak for the community at large. I think they get an agenda that they're pushing, and I think they really get wrapped up in this, and it gets a lot of oxygen on the internet. It gets a lot of oxygen on social media platform. Now, they say there's no social contagion here, but the girls that are claiming to be transgender, that percentage has gone up. Some reports say it's gone up 800%, 1,000% over the last several years, and they say, well, that's because they feel more comfortable talking about it now. Is that true, or is it because you read about it, you see it on social media, and you think, well, I can distinguish myself in this way? I think there is a social contagion effect. So people jump on the bandwagon, and if it's for a short period of time, but they've done things that can't be reversed, I think that's really tragic. And they say there are very few detransitioners. I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot more detransitioners that want to reverse this and come back than are being reported.
But there's a lot of deep shame attached to that, obviously.
Of course.
It's also something that you don't want people to know about. It's so personal. It defines you for the rest of your life. Everyone's going to know that's the guy that used to be a girl and became a guy again. And there's all the questions and all the bullshit that comes along with that.
I don't think teachers want to get involved in this. I think some of them push it. I think teachers at large just want to teach. I don't think they want to get pulled into this. And, people will hear us talk about this and say, oh, you're transphobic. I don't hate anybody. I just am concerned for the welfare of young people that get led in a particular direction.
Well, that's just a way to silence people from talking about it. They'll say you're transphobic.
Well.